So this is our practice day for death, intermediate state, and rebirth. So we'll begin. Let's begin as always with some meditation. Sit comfortably. And remember, the reason for meditating at the beginning in this context is the same purpose of doing the prayers at the beginning. This try to set a special motivation, not just a motivation of the lesser vehicle to taking refuge in Dharma and aspiring to escape from cyclic existence for oneself, but to achieve enlightenment with the bodhicitta motivation for the benefit of all sentient beings, and particularly if the subject involves Tantra, Highest Yoga Tantra, to make an aspiration to very quickly attain enlightenment even in this lifetime, or set up the causes to attain enlightenment in one lifetime through the practice of Highest Yoga Tantra. So first try to bring your attention to the respiration. Then as the mind is a little bit centered, a little bit non-conceptual, again remember the motivation that we'll try to elaborate during this period, that it's not enough just to achieve protection from rebirth in the lower realms. Even the Hinayana teachings of the Buddha explain the necessity to eventually escape from cyclic existence. Even that's not enough to really help all sentient beings, and in order to achieve one's own ultimate welfare of everlasting blissful happiness, I must achieve the state of enlightenment. So for that purpose, I'm going to first of all meditate on the gross clear light nature of the mind, as we've begun to recognize. So letting go of all of the other thoughts, inner distractions, just center on the subjective mind as your object of observation, its clear light nature. Like a vast space with no obstructing contact. The nature of the mind is clear light without any obstruction to thoughts. Let go again and again of any thoughts, the objective thoughts, and try to perceive the mind within which they're arising. The body appears just as a appearance to your conceptual mind. It's not part of the mind itself. Even the sense of the I is just appearing. It doesn't have to be an object of distraction. You can let go of that and focus instead on this clear light nature. And with this concentrated mind, try to recall that the root of all of our problems is the grasping to an inherently existing I. It gives rise to our attachment, our dissatisfaction, our anger, our pride, our jealousy, our depression. This is the state of mind, the innate ego grasping, that's the root cause of the suffering of all sentient beings still caught within cyclic existence, all our mother sentient beings. So having used this gross clear light nature of the conventional mind, conventional clear light nature, as our object of focus, first of all, now place your attention on the object of negation of emptiness, of the emptiness of persons, of the emptiness of the self. Try to generate momentarily a very strong feeling of I, thinking of how you've been wronged or perhaps been praised or threatened in some way. The sense of I arising in your mind, the appearance of the I. As though objectively findable. Also watch the mental response to that appearance, the mind that's actually grasping to that appearance of the I. Two different things. The appearance of the I will exist even till the 10th bhumi in the sutra path. But we can see it later as an illusion, not be grasping to it. Notice how the mental consciousness assents to that, accepts that, goes along with it, grasps to it. Although at first the I might seem to be coexistent with the body, form aggregate, or the mind, or your wisdom, or your ignorance. If you delve deeper, there's a subtler appearance of the I. Arisen from the appearance of the mere I, the merely imputed I. An I that doesn't seem to be any one of the aggregates. So having observed, identified the object of negation, the sense of an inherently existent I, remember that if such an I did exist, if there were a findable, truly existent I, it would have to be truly one with a basis of designation, the aggregates, or truly other than the aggregates. If anything exists, it has to, if any two things exist, they either have to be identical, one, or different. It's called establishing the pervasion. If this I existed, I should be able to find it it should be identifiable either as truly one with the aggregates or truly different than the aggregates, because it seems to be truly existing from its own side. If it were truly one with the aggregates, as there are 5 aggregates, either there would have to be 5 separate ego identities, one for each of the aggregates, or there would have to be only one aggregate, as there's one I. Still looking at this appearance of the I and the way the mind is looking at it, there do not appear to our consciousness to be 5 different I's, multiplicity of selves. And even if it were, the I was really imputed upon just one aggregate, say the mental consciousness, as that itself, say there were just one aggregate, one I, as that itself has parts. Virtuous and non-virtuous, previous, present, future. There would have to be multiple I's. This is talking about the truly existent I. If, on the other hand, the I was other than the aggregates, truly other than them, truly different than the aggregates, it would have no relationship with them whatsoever. If the aggregates were harmed in some way, the body pierced or burned, the self would not be affected, being existent, inherently independent of the aggregates, truly different than the aggregates. Then recalling, if this I exists the way that it appears, as findable, as truly existent, it would have to be either one with the aggregates or different in the aggregates. And as it is neither one with the aggregates or different than the aggregates, let there dawn within your recognition, your consciousness, a wisdom understanding that such an I does not exist, that the I is empty of true existence, because it is not one with the aggregates, it's not truly one with the aggregates, it is not truly different than the aggregates. You can analyze like that for some time, and then when the understanding dawns, let the appearance of emptiness dawn to your mind, a mere vacuity that's been induced by this analysis. It's inferential cognizer. The meaning of that is that the I is totally, truly existent I is totally non-existent. When you arise from a moment of such contemplation, again in post-equipoise, recognizing the self still appears, but there is something, although it's empty, knowing that it's empty, there is something that does exist conventionally. Recognize the I that does exist is a mere dependent arising. A mere name, no more than that. The I, the self that does exist, is just conceptually designated by the mental consciousness. That's the only sense of I that has a conventional, consistent meaning. Using that subsequently as a reason, you can remind yourself the self and other phenomena are empty of true existence, because like the self, all phenomena are merely dependent arisings. They can't be found within their basis of designation, and merely imputed by consciousness, observing the basis of designation, imputed with concept or name. And recalling how short a lifespan we have now with this life of leisure and endowment that we could use to benefit sentient beings ultimately, not just with material aid or help right now, but leading them to enlightenment only if we first attain enlightenment ourselves. The point of view of Highest Yoga Tantra, the impediment of achieving enlightenment is the taking of impure death, intermediate state, and rebirth. So for the sake of achieving enlightenment, for the welfare of all sentient beings, I'm going to meditate on the stages of death. So think, having meditated before our death, we're seated or lying, inevitably is going to happen to us, death. It comes to everyone, there's no way to escape it. And with a clear mind that we've engendered through our life of meditation and meditation close to the time of death, we begin to observe the close signs of death, the earth element, first of all, absorbing, dissolving, the form aggregate. the eye faculty, so the seeing becomes more hazy. Mirror-like wisdom, the basic state. The complexion and solidity of the body begins to degenerate. To our mental consciousness, we observe a subtle appearance of mirage-like vision, induced by the winds of these various objects absorbing, dissolving toward the heart. So thinking previously, I was not yet entered into the death evolution. Now this is the earth element dissolving. Next there will be the water element. Well, I'll have the smoke-like vision. But I'm heading toward the clear light of death. I must remember emptiness at that time. So I'm going to use this mind to meditate on emptiness. So again, bringing your earlier realization of selflessness of persons with this mind, recall that. The I that is perhaps grasping to life or fearful of losing life. This I does not exist whatsoever. The sense of an inherently existent I. Because the I is a dependent arising. So to your mental consciousness, let appear just a vacuity, which is the meaning of emptiness. After some time, the water element begins to absorb, dissolve, in the sense that the fire element will be more ascendant. The aggregate of feelings, the ear faculty, inner sound, the basic wisdom of equality is diminishing and absorbing, and our water of our body begins to dry up, lubrication, and the water within our mouth, the liquidity, and within our nostrils, within the surface of our eyes. And to our mental consciousness, although there might be fear of being, now as we experience this, some fear of being washed away by water perhaps, or some other fears arising, to our mental consciousness there arises the appearance of billowing smoke within a smoke-filled area. And we remember the sequence of things, where we are. Previously, the earth element absorbed, now the water element, next the fire element will absorb, and we'll have the spark-like vision. I must remember emptiness at the time of the clear light of death, the mother clear light. So I'm going to recall it now. Even my aggregates, which are the basis for imputing the I, are empty, like the self itself. There's no form aggregate that's inherently existent. No feelings, discrimination, compositional factors, or consciousness. Even the basis for designating the self, the I, is empty of true existence. Although the body conventionally exists, as a name, a concept we attribute to this appearance of collection of parts, there is no inherently existent body. Again, meditate on emptiness, just a vacuity appearing to your mental consciousness. After some time, the fire element begins to absorb. Aggregate of discrimination, basic wisdom of analysis, individual analysis. The nose faculty. The heat of the body begins to fade. The digestion stops. The warmth of the body begins to slowly be drawn from the limbs, from the feet, from the head toward the heart. Our breathing becomes more erratic. And there appears to our mental consciousness a vision of either fireflies or sparks. And we again keep mindful of what happened before, what's happening next. Previously, the water element absorbed. I had smoke vision. Next, there will be the vision of a dying butter lamp. Here, this vision of fireflies. I must remember emptiness at the time of clear light of death. If we're practicing Tantra, we add other factors to that, thinking I must remember the bliss and emptiness at the time of death, clear light of death. So I'm going to meditate on emptiness now. Think all phenomena, everything that appears to our consciousness, including this appearance of fireflies, seems to have an existence from its own side. But as we've understood previously in meditating on emptiness, all phenomena lack such an existence. Their only conventional existence is one that's designated by the mind, merely imputed by a thought consciousness. All phenomena, Buddha feels, friends, enemies, and strangers, the state of enlightenment, even our attainment of enlightenment. All of them are empty of true existence. In review, the self is empty, the aggregates are empty, all phenomena are empty. After some time, the air element begins to dissolve. Compositional factors aggregate, basic wisdom of accomplishment. The tongue faculty, the body faculties both diminish and absorb. As the breathing begins to slow even more and stop, there appears to the mental consciousness the appearance, vision of a dying butter lamp, the color of a dying butter lamp. Still mindful of this through this kind of meditation during our lifetime, not letting the mind be distracted or not ascertain it. We recall previously there was the firefly-like vision. Next there will be the vision of the white increase. The white appearance, rather. I must remember death. I must remember the clear light of death as the meaning of emptiness. I must remember emptiness there. Mix the sun and mother clear lights. So with this subtle mind, free of other distractions, I think all phenomena are empty of true existence. The object, the conceived object of innate ego grasping, a truly existent phenomena, is totally non-existent. No phenomena exists from its own side as findable within its basis of designation. Merely imputed, designated by the mind. This appearance included. Again, just vacuity appears to the mental consciousness, induced by this analysis. There's no self, no aggregates, no phenomena, no truly existent phenomena. Then as the consciousness aggregate begins to absorb and the basic wisdom of Dharma Dhatu absorbs, the 80 indicative conceptions dissolve together, the mind becoming free of gross conceptualizing minds. Still the vision of a dying butter lamp. Until the airs have withdrawn to the right and left nadis around the central channel. And within that, above the heart, the airs have risen and, due to karma, opened the crown chakra. The white element there begins to descend toward the heart. And there appears to a subtler mental consciousness now, the white appearance. Now already a sense of vacuity, but pervaded by a slight appearance of white light, like the vibration of the moonlight. And due to the force of having meditated on emptiness before, up to this point, a remembering consciousness, a recollection arises. Of emptiness. This empty, pervaded by white light, transforms into a total vacuity with no appearance of whiteness, recalling that even this appearance is empty of true existence. There's no truly existent white appearance. There's no truly existent phenomena. The meaning of this vacuity that dawns to our mind, that the conceived object of innate ego grasping is totally non-existent. Again, as the winds below the heart in the right and left channels descend, opening the lower chakras, and the air is rising, opening the navel chakra, the red element there, ascending, coming up to the heart, induces the appearance of a red increase, greater vacuity, pervaded by a subtler vibration of copper red color light. Again, in the generation stage, being mindful, previously there was a white appearance, next there'll be the black near attainment. I must remember emptiness, bliss and emptiness at the time of the clear light of death. So I'm going to meditate on emptiness now, thinking like that in the generation stage, whereas in the actual completion stage and death process, one no longer can analyze, one just induces the recollection of emptiness due to this vacuity. The red appearance disappears, the red increase. Having recognized it as an object that can be conceived as appearing and is grasped at as truly existent. There is no truly existent phenomena, just the conceived object of an innate ego grasping. The white and red drops meet at the heart, encapsulating the indestructible drop there. And there begins to dawn the black near attainment. The first part of which is still vacuity, still some mindfulness, subtle mindfulness, like the appearance in a moonless, starless night, perhaps overcast, total darkness, becoming darker and darker. And we recall even this appearance is empty of true existence. Although it seems to be findable, if we analyzed, appears to be truly existent, inherently existent. It too only exists as a designation to this collection of parts. There's nothing existing objectively or inherently from its own side. All phenomena are empty because they're dependent arisings. We fall into the second part of the black near attainment. And even losing that mindfulness, the mind as though becomes unconscious, as the gross minds, grosser than the subtlemost clear light minds cease. And there dawns the clear light of death, the mother clear light. Now an even greater emptiness, with no gross dualistic appearance of any white, red, or black visions. In a sense, like the objective clear light that we meditated on in the previous meditation on the gross nature of the mind, conventional clear light nature. Due to our having brought the mindfulness of emptiness to this point, there is induced a recollection, mindfulness, of the meaning of this vacuity, the meaning of emptiness. All phenomena are empty of true existence. In the generation stage, we try to develop a divine pride, thinking, I am the essence of the indestructible nature of the wisdom realizing emptiness. This is my entity. This is the Dharmakaya. Total vacuity, recognized as emptiness, second factor. Pervaded by bliss and designated, recognized with the divine pride of being, the Dharmakaya. Merely imputed. when the subtlemost wind begins to quiver, tremble, and we begin to arise from the clear light of death into what might otherwise be the impure bardo, intermediate state, arising simultaneously, spontaneously as a bardo body with the onset of the black near attainment of the reverse order. Instead, we meditate and rise as the Sambhogakaya. In this case, on the path, as the illusory body. In ordinary death, the bardo body, taking the form of the prior existence of the next life, prior meaning prior to the death of the next life, we wander within the bardo until the conditions for rebirth take place, whether it be in the hells or the Preta realm, animal realm, human, asura, or god realms. If we were taking rebirth in the womb, in the human realm, we see the fertilized egg, mother and father, perceiving that as the actual couple engaged in union. We're attracted to one partner depending on our future gender, coming close, wishing to embrace with them. Anger arises, and the onset of the impure rebirth takes place as our mind leaves the clear light of death of the bardo state, enters into the black near attainment, taking rebirth within the womb. A yogi or yogini on the path of completion, not yet attained enlightenment, would utilize that, visualizing the fertilized egg as a moon disk with a red tinge, perhaps, and wishing to emanate a grosser body than the Sambhogakaya for the welfare for sentient beings, would descend into that fertilized egg under the moon disk and imagine sending out light, purifying sentient beings, making offerings to the Buddhas, enlightening sentient beings into the form of the meditational deity. Imagine all that energy coming back, all of that light and blessings coming back, and one arising as the Nirmanakaya. So think, although at this level, even my meditation is very unstable, not firm concentration, no divine pride to speak of, in order to prepare for this incredible opportunity in this degenerate age to practice Highest Yoga Tantra, to take the three kayas into the path for the welfare of sentient beings, so that I can lead all sentient beings into enlightenment. I'm going to participate in the practice day on death, intermediate state, and rebirth. Let me bring your attention back. You have glasses. Do you usually wear glasses at all? Oh. You needed them for the meditation, right?
So is your clear light a little clearer then?
Sometimes it almost seems that there's some meditators, maybe some lamas have said also that when they have their glasses on, they can meditate better. Even though you're not, you shouldn't be looking through your eyes. It's just something. What do you find? Oh, this? Okay. So something to investigate. Okay. Okay. So we've been studying this text, death, intermediate state, and rebirth. I think everyone here, not everyone has taken the final yet, but some people, most of the people have taken the final. So we talked about the purpose of this text was mainly to prepare us to understand better from the tantric point of view, to understand better the stages of Highest Yoga Tantra, but also as some information to make even our sutra meditation on death more extensive and more precise, to understand actually what will happen at the time of death. So if you are with individuals who are dying, to be able to guide them through that state, as you're familiar with that, without getting emotionally involved and so forth, developing confidence over time that the consciousness does exist after this lifetime, that the subtle mind continues, that it's not a total cessation, and even yourself making prayers to, when you meet that individual again, to be able to, to relate with them in a dharmic way, to perhaps teach them, or be their student, if they're a great being. So why don't we take a little break first of all? This is a long meditation, and we'll begin with some other talk and meditation afterwards. Let me ask you if you have any particular questions about the course, about the material. Yeah, Dan. Not about the final exam questions. Okay. No, I mean you shouldn't ask about questions so and so.
It's not specifically.
Yeah.
But number 10.
Yeah.
Some of us haven't taken it, so go ahead, ask them.
But what is it? So if one achieves the metaphoric clear light, and then that's the direct cause of the impure illusory body, what is it about achieving the metaphoric clear light that allows that is the direct cause of the subtlemost wind to then be able to arise in the aspect of a deity? Because before you realize the metaphoric clear light, you still access the subtlemost wind and subtlemost mind, but it's not able to arise as a deity. So how come having an inferential understanding of or realization of emptiness allows the subtle wind to arise?
Short answer is I don't know. That's the brief answer. I don't remember seeing any particular reason other than the fact that something fundamentally changes there, because when you've realized emptiness, with that subtle mind, say with conceptual consciousness. That is, you realize it conceptually, and that's called the example or metaphoric clear light. I don't know what it's called in Sanskrit. Something fundamentally changes there because you've got a basis. Although you haven't eliminated the delusions from the root, as you will on the meaning clear light, there's something fundamentally strong about the delusions being subdued later. Like, for instance, in the sutra path, even before the attainment of the path of seeing, on the path of preparation, when you've realized emptiness conceptually, but not yet, and with a union of tranquil abiding and penetrative insight, the delusions don't manifest strongly at that time because of the fact that you have already, you're approaching, because the path of preparation could be translated as the path of connection. Jorwa, Jorlam, there are different etymologies in the different texts. Sometimes they say preparing or joining to the path of seeing. So the delusions are not manifest near the end of that time, although they're not abandoned yet. Okay? It's sort of like in when you develop shine, tranquil abiding, shamatha, and you actually have not degenerated from that. The gross delusions of the desire realm don't manifest strongly, even in post-meditation. I mean, if they start to manifest, then you start to lose your ability to enter into shine again, and you have to spend some time developing it. So they're not, here in the path of preparation, it's something more, it's something stronger, that the delusions don't manifest as strongly. So I don't know, it might be something similar to that when you have that inferential understanding, the conceptual understanding of emptiness on the example clear light, maybe by the force of the afflictions not manifesting strongly when you start to, well, of course, there are not going to be any afflictions manifesting at the time of the black near attainment, or are there? Would there be some afflictions arising then? All afflictions have to be conceptual minds? There's still going to be some innate, the imprint of innate ego grasping. Pardon? Well, they might not be manifest, right? It's that you have to check. For something not to be manifest doesn't mean that they've been abandoned, that they've been eliminated completely. When you, say for instance, as you're meditating on emptiness, in going through the white appearance, the red increase, and black near attainment, there is the appearance of true existence. I'm not sure, because it's not something that's entered into this course, and I'm not sure from other teachings if there's some subtle grasping with those minds. Usually the grasping is going to be a conceptual mind, as those minds are, the 80 indicative conceptions have already dissolved. It may be that there's a subtle form of grasping. I don't know. But as you're arising from the clear light, the metaphoric clear light, or the example clear light, and you arrive, the winds then, the subtlemost winds that act as a mount to that clear light mind, as they have somehow, they're affected by the mind, just as the winds affect the mind affects the winds. So as that mind now having realized emptiness conceptually, like on the path of preparation, this is my own assumption. You know, you'll have to check. These are the kind of things that once you've already begin to investigate something and think about it like this and analyze it, then later when you read or receive teachings, you'll listen more attentively to what's being said and be able to ask more precise questions. So my assumption is that because that subtle mind is already is not going to manifest as strongly delusions, perhaps that allows then or afflictions, that allows then the subtle wind to actually take the form of the deity. I don't know any other reason. There might be something explained, and those of you who search through the text or ask the lamas, it'd be interesting. That might be an interesting question, but I don't know. That's the short answer is I don't know. I'm just sort of trying to surmise what might be the reason myself. Okay. Okay. Michelle.
Venerable George, on a pragmatic level, you know.
That wasn't pragmatic?
Yeah, well, for you it's pragmatic, but,
No, that's...
but for little me, who's just going to drop dead one day and has to go through this and didn't really study for the final. So, you know, on that level, when the idea of emptiness, you know, it seems to me when you're going through this, it's conceptual. And so what I have difficulty with is, so we have this conceptual nature of emptiness, not realizing emptiness, but the conception of that.
You can realize that a conceptual understanding of emptiness can be a realization of it.
Okay, but let's just say, for the sake of argument, that I haven't realized emptiness.
So you're just imagining some vacuity.
Let's say that, because, all right, just for the sake of argument. So as we're dying, it seems as if that we need some conceptualization as we're going through this process to keep the mind focused on emptiness.
Yeah, you have to be able to, first of all, you have to analyze, first of all, at the beginning.
Right.
When the mind is still gross.
Right.
And then as the mind is becoming subtler and subtler, the ability to analyze is becoming, more difficult and less, it's less and less capable of analyzing. So at that point, you have to move over to this, just to memory, to mindfulness, to recollection, recalling the emptiness that you have brought to the previous stage.
Okay, so that mind, or or whatever that is, what is that that's going to recall that?
That's one of the factors of the mind, mindfulness, or recollection. So, say for instance, when you go to sleep at night, you make a firm determination, tomorrow morning I've got to remember to take this special medicine the doctor gave me, or something like that, as soon as I get up. So even though during the night your mind goes completely unconscious, through the force of a very strong determination, as soon as you awake again, you can have a recollection of that. So somewhat similar, when you go through these subtler and subtler minds, when a subtler mind arises due to the force of having made a very firm determination, I must remember the meaning of emptiness. So I'm going to meditate on emptiness now. And because of that, in each case, especially when you're getting closer into the empties, into the white appearance and so forth, the actual appearance to the mind is one of, it's similar to emptiness, what you've meditated on before. If you've actually had a good kind of meditation on emptiness, there would appear to the mind just vacuity. So at that point of the white appearance, there is just a vacuity with a slight appearance merged in it of this whitish color light, like the vibration of a moon. Vibration of moonlight, not looking at the light from the moon, but like what's the sky pervaded by that light. So at that point, that induces, because it's already an empty, that induces a remembering consciousness of emptiness. Say, for instance, the next morning, you see the bottle of pills next to your bed. It immediately induces, oh, I have to take those.
Right.
Otherwise, you just see the pills and you say, what are those doing here? Knock them off the table. There's something that induces that memory. So in these cases, as you're going through the empties, I think it's the empty appearance that aids that recollection. And then you let go of the appearance, because the meaning of emptiness that you've ascertained before was not just personal emptiness, was not just the emptiness of your own aggregates, but the emptiness of all phenomena, especially thinking that any object that's conceived by innate ego grasping to be truly existent, all of those phenomena, whatever they might be, the self, the aggregates, other people, other phenomena, appearances, all of them are empty of true existence. So having gotten familiar with that, previously on the path of generation in Tantra or in the Sutra path, then to bring that into the death evolution, to meditate on emptiness on each of those stages. Then as you get to the subtler and subtler minds, that recognition, the recollection of that emptiness arises when you have an empty appearance. Like we call the white appearance has the name of empty, right? So although it's not the appearance, the same kind of appearance as appears to a consciousness realizing emptiness, where there's no color or no other kinds of dualistic appearance, still it has something similar, a vacuity. There's no other objects, no other gross conceptual distractions and so forth arising to the mind. So that can induce that memory of emptiness. And especially in regard to this appearance itself is something on the stage of generation, you'd consciously, conceptually think this appearance also is empty of true existence. And the actual white appearance, I don't think you would have the ability to conceptualize like that, to say to yourself, this white appearance is not truly existent.
Well, I think the conceptualization has to do with trying to place the mind in such a, that's my experience, is that when, because, it is a, try to, the vacuity. I mean, it is these words, these are conceptual things, these are even within the practice, and then there is an experiential aspect to it, and I understand that. So, but I guess if I'm understanding this, then it is by the practice and the intentionality, and then as it emerges, I guess it'll take care of itself. It did last time, so, here I am.
We have to differentiate between even with the white appearance, the red increase, the black near-attainment, even the clear light state, those minds can realize things conceptually. So they're not totally non-conceptual. They're not totally, they're absent of gross conceptuality and gross dualistic appearance, but there's still a subtle dualistic appearance, because even to the clear light of death, ordinary clear light of death, what's appearing to the mind is a vacuity, but even that vacuity appears to be truly existent. If it appeared to be non-truly existent, you would have a mental consciousness which is apprehending emptiness. But that's not the case. In that case, everyone who died would necessarily apprehend emptiness. So in the Gelugpa tradition, there's made that distinction that although it appears empty, you have to add to that the mindfulness that this empty represents emptiness, shunyata. So in the texts of Highest Yoga Tantra, Lama Tsongkhapa's writings, talks about 4 recognitions that you have to have in that the clear light. You have to first recognize empty. So you have to simulate on this path of generation stage, you have to simulate total vacuity. Not yet recognized as empty. Just no thoughts, no appearances, no sense of the I. This is what will actually be appearing at the clear light of death. Just a vacuity. And then you have to bring to that the recognition that this is the meaning of emptiness. Because when you've meditated on emptiness before, there's a similar kind of appearance of vacuity. So this induces that recollection. I think this is the reason for saying on all those stages beforehand, I must remember emptiness at the time of death. Empty appears, but not emptiness. So you have to bring that recollection. That's called what? To recollect the meaning of emptiness would be called what? Mixing of the sun clear light with that mother clear light. Because the mother clear light is just this objective empty, which has been induced through all of the errors entering into not only the central channel, but into the heart chakra, into the indestructible drop at that point. And so there's no conceptualizing minds, conceptualizing in the sense of gross conceptualization, thinking about things. But there is still the ability, first of all, to have a conceptual understanding of emptiness. So there's some subtle differentiation there. For instance, on the example clear light, metaphoric clear light. Then, when one arises from that, when that meditative, say if you were to develop the metaphoric clear light during meditation on the completion stage, a yogi or yogini of Highest Yoga Tantra, having achieved the isolation of body, isolation of speech, isolation of mind, and at the end of that to experience the winds absorbing into the heart chakra and arising in this clear light mind at some point, that's still part of the isolation of mind, but at a certain point when you can bring to that the conceptual understanding of emptiness, the recollection of it. You have to have realized it beforehand, gross mind. Then, with that mind, when that mind ceases, the clear light ceases, and you start to enter into the black near attainment, instead of the ordinary mind's later visualizing oneself as a deity, it's said that due to the force of that remembrance of the deity beforehand, practicing on the generation stage, developing the divine pride and so forth, and also on the completion stage, the winds, the subtle wind that acts as a mount of that mind, actually arise in the form of the meditational deity that you've accustomed with. And that is the attainment of the illusory body, which in this case is called impure because it's arisen out of that mind within which the afflictions have not yet been abandoned. Okay, so as we'll see later this afternoon, that's kind of like we say that in Highest Yoga Tantra, the generation stage is kind of the path of accumulation is kind of coexistent with the generation stage. That at the beginning of the path of the completion stage, when you can bring the airs, cause the airs to enter into the central channel, that's the onset of the path of preparation. And then from that point on, all the way through the achievement of the illusory body, up until the point of the clear light, which is actually the meaning clear light, not just the example clear light, but after the example or metaphoric clear light and one arises in the form of the illusory body, it may take many, many more meditative sessions when one enters into meditation again until one achieves the meaning clear light. It doesn't happen just the very next time. But when one attains the meaning clear light, that is, when again one enters into causing the airs to enter into the central channel, into the indestructible drop at the heart, and bringing to that meditation the meaning of emptiness, when you realize emptiness directly with that subtle mind, that's called the stage of clear light. And then as you arise from that, now the illusory body, because at that point the illusory body is not appearing within that clear light, not appearing to your consciousness. The illusory body then appears, that is called the pure illusory body, after the meaning clear light. And from that point one is on the path of meditation. So the clear light itself, that meditative equipoise on the meaning clear light, when one realizes emptiness directly, is like the path of seeing. But there's a difference here in Tantra. This path of seeing not only eliminates the intellectually formed delusions, as in sutra. Usually in the sutra path, the path of seeing, you eliminate not all of the delusions from the mind. You eliminate what are called the intellectually formed delusions. And then on the path of meditation, on the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh bhumis, you eliminate the rest of the innate delusions, afflictions, okay, klesha. Subtler and subtler forms, especially ego grasping. Here in Tantra, that one meditative session on the clear light, the meaning clear light, eliminates both the innate, both the intellectually formed and the innate afflictions all together at one time. So when one arises from that, although one is said to be on the path of meditation, one has already eliminated all of the afflictions. And one is now meditating in order to get the mind to be able to eliminate now the obstructions to omniscience. None of the obstructions to omniscience are, in Tantra, Highest Yoga Tantra, are abandoned in that clear light. So no, you're not, it's still, there's still different bhumis on that path of meditation, but you're not eliminating, like on the second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, seventh bhumis in the sutra path, you're not eliminating afflictions, nor are you eliminating the obstructions to omniscience yet. You're just developing a more and more powerful mind and the ability to do various kinds of actions and accumulating merit and wisdom that will allow either on, depends, as is said in the texts, either on the 8th, 9th, and 10th bhumis of Highest Yoga Tantra, or on the last meditative equipoise, the Vajra-like meditative equipoise, one eliminates all of the remaining obstructions to omniscience due to that accumulation further of merit. So it's not like in sutra, you have something continuously being abandoned. Well, in a sense, I mean, it's not continuously, but different stages, there's more and more abandonment. Here, after the clear light, which is the path of seeing of Highest Yoga Tantra here in the Guhya Samaja, general Guhya Samaja system, you've eliminated all of the obstructions to liberation. That means the kleshas, both the intellectually formed and the innate. And then when one arises from that in the impure illusory body, that impure illusory body then you're exercising, I mean, arising as the pure illusory body from the meaning clear light, right? That now that pure illusory body, through exercising various activities with it, one accumulates more and more merit, and by meditating on these various stages, one accumulates wisdom and merit together. Sorry.
I'm sorry. If you're finished, I have another question, but maybe.
Okay, I'll just see. And so from that point, until the very end of that tantric, the achievement of enlightenment, there's a period when one is not abandoning the obstructions to omniscience yet. You'd only abandon them near the end, like on the what would be called the 8th, 9th, and 10th bhumis of Highest Yoga Tantra, having gone through some period of that's recognized as the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th bhumis, or in another interpretation, it's only at the last meditative equipoise as a union, a learner's union. Remember, as soon as you arise from the clear light stage, you enter into the tantric stage called union. And this is called learner's union, in the sense that you are still not enlightened. You're not a no more learner. You're not a graduate yet. There is the graduate's union, okay? That's Buddhahood. Okay, so this is the learner's union. And then there's other kinds of terminology that's used about union of the two truths and so forth. But here, just not to bring in too much other terminology, just to talk in here, when we talked about in this text talking about these various stages, isolation of body, isolation of speech, isolation of mind, just mentions the names that you'll learn about more in detail. And the isolation of mind is a whole period when one is getting closer and closer to bringing the airs into the central channel, and not in the central channel, into the indestructible drop, and causing that clear light mind to rise fully qualified in the sense of, all of the airs entering into that. And then there's discussions about whether you need a consort or not and so forth in order to do that. And then one arises from that at a certain point when one has realized emptiness conceptually with that mind. At the end of the isolation of mind, that's the achievement of the metaphoric clear light. When one arises from that, one arises in the impure illusory body. And from that point, one will no longer take rebirth in cyclic existence due to karma and delusion, because that kind of precludes that. In fact, it's said that once you achieve that, you no longer will even die in that lifetime. So some lamas who might otherwise look like they're sick or something, if they've already achieved the impure illusory body, there's no way karmically that their body can actually die. They can show actual ordinary death. So that impure illusory body remains, and then as one enters into meditation again and again, at a certain point at the clear light experience, it's no longer metaphoric, it's no longer conceptual, it becomes non-conceptual, and at that point all of the afflictions are abandoned, the intellectually formed and the innate. And when one arises from that, the illusory body is then called the pure illusory body. Okay, that's not a separate stage, but at that point, as soon as one arises in the pure illusory body, at the point of the black near attainment of the reverse order from the clear light, one enters into the stage called union, the learner's union. And that learner's union continues through the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th bhumis, also the 8th, then on the 8th, 9th, and 10th, or on the final meditative equipoise on that clear light, when it becomes the antidote to all of the final obstructions to omniscience, that becomes the immediate cause of the union of no more learning, Buddhahood. So one arises from that as the illusory body no longer is just the illusory body of a sentient being. It becomes the Sambhogakaya at that point. Okay. Yeah.
Well, Dorje, you had a question.
Oh yeah, Dorje, you have.
I've already got the camera on you, so you go.
Keep turning.
This all starts with the isolation of the mind. And there's just one sentence in this book about that, and yet it seems to be a really important stage.
Really a tough sentence, right?
And yeah,
Which
it
page is that?
This is page 70, under the listing of the 6 stages. About the middle of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th second from the bottom paragraph, the big paragraph. It says, the isolation of mind is a yoga in which the mind that is the root of cyclic existence and of nirvana is isolated from conceptuality as well as a wind that serves as the ladder's mount. I did not take mind and mental factors. Maybe this is covered in that course, but it says the mind that is the root of cyclic existence. Is there something I need to know about that aside from the fact that it's an afflicted mind? And then the second part of the question is isolated from conceptuality. Is that gross conceptuality, all conceptuality, subtle conceptuality? I take it from your previous answer that it's not subtle conceptuality, because there has
Well, it depends on what you mean by conceptuality. You have to, when we talk about, there's no conceptualizing minds. There's no ability to analyze or think ordinarily, to analyze at that point when the clear light arises. Here, the clear light doesn't arise when you have the isolation of mind. It's when the isolation of mind is when you cause the winds to enter into the heart chakra, into the indestructible drop there. That's when you might need to depend upon a consort, say if you were the lowest level practitioner, in order to draw the winds from the all-pervasive wind from all of the subtle places. Higher yogis and yoginis supposedly can draw the winds in even with a visualized consort or even just meditating on emptiness, as you'll find in this text and other texts, and as Venerable Kirti Senchab Rinpoche mentioned in his courses this last year. So let me just read to you what the isolation of mind, when we talk about it here in this text by Daniel Consort, not Daniel Consort, Daniel Consort, Highest Yoga Tantra. So this is kind of a little bit of his, he studied with some lamas, but a lot of it's drawn from secondary sources, so it's not a all sort of fundamental source text. It's sort of his interpretation from other lamas' teachings also. On page 89, if you have this text, okay? Mental isolation. So this is what you're asking about, right? Yes. The definition of the level of mental isolation is the stage of completion from the point at which one generates the exalted wisdom of appearance that has arisen due to the dissolution of the winds in the indestructible drop at the heart. So it has to be not just the bringing of the winds into the central channel when you have the appearances and so forth, right? When you start to bring the winds into the central channel at the beginning of the completion stage and the isolation of body, physical isolation, you also have some appearance of, the white appearance, red increase, black near attainment, and some kind of, perhaps some kind of experience of clear light, but that's not the actual arising in very, very full, vivid detail. Here, when all the winds come into the indestructible drop at the heart, we're talking about mental isolation. So it's the stage of completion from the point at which one generates the exalted wisdom of appearance that has arisen due to the dissolution of the winds in the indestructible drop of the heart, having fully untied the central knot at the heart. So that's quite an advanced, past the beginning of the path of completion, where it's called physical isolation, isolation of body, isolation of speech, which might depend on the Guhya Samaja, on the Vajra recitation, or Tumo in the Huruka and other systems. Here, you've actually caused the heart chakra to open, having fully untied the channel knot at the heart. So that's a six-fold knot, right? There's the right channel goes around 3 times, the left channel goes around 3 times, so they call it the six-fold knot. Having fully untied the channel knot at the heart in dependence upon internal conditions, that is to say, Vajra repetition, and the stages of withdrawal of the two concentrations. And that can mean also, this is talking from the point of view of Guhya Samaja, talking about Vajra repetition, Vajra recitation, where one recites the mantra internally, listens and hears the sound of the air entering, abiding, and dissolving into the central channel as the syllables Om Ahum. You know, like we think Om Ahum, oh, that's just, you know, we bless the food with that. That's just a simple, yeah, that's. Or when we do Lama Chopa Puja, sometimes at a certain point when we recite mantras, we recite the mantras, Shakyamuni and different mantras, the Guru mantra and so forth. And at the end we recite Om Ahum many times. So you might think, oh, that's just some trivial kind of mantra. But that is related with the Vajra repetition or Vajra recitation. That's one of the ways of causing the winds to develop the, enter into and abide in the central channel, dissolve in the central channel, which is related with Vajra recitation, Vajra repetition. So you've caused the central knot, this channel knot at the heart, to untie in dependence upon those internal conditions, such as Vajra repetition, and 2, external condition, such as vitality lengthening involving a seal. So depending upon a karma mudra, seal means mudra here, karma mudra like consort, or on a visualized consort, or on the maha mudra. You know, the highest kind of practitioner would depend upon, not upon the karma mudra or the wisdom consort, the jnana mudra or yeshi chakya, would depend upon the maha mudra, chakya chembo, for as long as one has not achieved an impure illusory body. So that's mental isolation. So when mental isolation begins, you've just now have that very, very useful, clear light experience now, fully qualified entering of the winds into the indestructible drop, because now the heart chakra is completely opened. But you know, it's not till at the end of that period of the mental isolation, it might, however long it takes a yogi or yogini, it might, I don't know how long it would take, you know, months, years. It depends. If you're doing a 3-year retreat, and you achieve enlightenment in that 3 years, 3 months, and 3 half cycles of the moon, it's possible that during that period you actually go through mental isolation from the beginning. You've opened up the heart chakra. So sometimes it is possible that it's got to be possible to do it in less than 3 years, to go from the beginning of mental isolation through to actual metaphoric clear light. Okay, if you have that, the karma to be able to do that. Not everyone that does a 3-year retreat, of course, achieves enlightenment in 3 years. It's something that's possible. Through the practice, it's possible to achieve, even if you have not yet entered the path, you have not yet developed bodhicitta, you don't even yet have actual spontaneous renunciation. You haven't realized emptiness. Still, in that 3-year retreat, we say 3 years, 3 years, 3 months, 3 half cycles of the moon, so another 1.5 months. It's said that through the practice of Highest Yoga Tantra, in that time you can accumulate all of the merit to, first of all, generate bodhicitta, enter into the path of accumulation of Highest Yoga Tantra, then enter into, while one finishes the path of generation, entering into the completion stage, entering into the path of preparation, all the way through to the mind of mental isolation, and at the end of which one actually can realize emptiness conceptually, arising as the illusory body, and then subsequently meditating on emptiness when one enters into the clear light, entering into the path of seeing, when all of the afflictions are eliminated. All of this could take place in that 3 years, even from that point, then arising from the clear light immediately. The clear light is that stage is only going to be one meditative session. Arising from that one arises necessarily as the pure illusory body, and then meditating successively after that, maybe exiting the physical body, coming back, or in place of the bardo, that illusory body, like Lama Tsongkhapa, then pure illusory, meditating on emptiness again and again, and achieving the union of no more learner from there. So these are all details that we can learn. This is kind of just as you see in our text, there's not much detail about it. It's just kind of like some tantalizing hints, you might say. And as we elaborate a little now and think about it more and more, and we analyze it now, then when you go back and study the Tantric Grounds and Paths, some of you took some courses the last couple of years with Kirti Sancham Rinpoche, and you may have opportunity again to study these subjects. As you study that, now this information will act as a foundation, and you'll sort of have a connection. You'll know the general outline of things, and you can fill in the details then. Otherwise, hearing it the first time, everything sounds totally new, and you're dubious about everything, So we can fill in the details then. Georgie, you had some question?
Yeah, if one is not at the level of having caused the winds into the central channel and had the appearances arise due to meditation, like that, is only on the level of generation or just imagining that?
No. On path of generation.
Okay, that's not my question.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but if one is just, it doesn't have any completion stage realizations, is it possible to recognize the appearances at the time of sleep? And then the second part is, if one has not recognized it at the time of sleep, the dissolutions and the appearances in the clear light, is it possible to recognize it at death?
So, several parts of your question. I think on the the actual generation stage, in general, there's no practices there other than some ancillary practices, like in Vajrayogini. There's some like Vajra recitation or some other kinds of meditations where one might be able to cause some entry of winds into the central channel, but that's not yet called a completion stage. Usually, the completion stage starts from the ability to actually not just visualize the process, but to actually cause the winds to enter into the central channel and to start to observe the white appearance, red increase. Now, you can cause the winds to enter in before, even in the Hindu tantras, or people can just do tumo without having done generation stage, but that's not called completion stage. Even though you might be able to imagine, not just imagine these, you might actually observe the white appearance and red increase and so forth. It's not actual completion stage, because the completion stage, in all of the traditions, is said to only occur. Well, the onset of the completion stage, according to these texts, is when one has entered into the path of preparation. So you've already generated, on the generation stage, spontaneous bodhicitta. You have the divine pride of being the deity. You have this indestructible kind of concentration and so forth. Otherwise, these other kinds of things are not called completion stage, although they might appear to be completion stage. So even in Vajrayogini or other tantras, when you can cause some things, some kind of entry into the central channel, it's not called completion stage yet. Okay, you're not actually on the path of preparation of Highest Yoga Tantra. So my understanding is that until you can cause, you might be able to recognize these appearances if in meditation, even if you didn't achieve the actual completion stage, you were just doing your own trip. You were saying, oh, I'm not going to do what the great yogis, Milarepa, Lama Tsongkhapa did. I'm just going to, I'm going to skip that. I'm going to just do Tumo. There's some people that might imagine this is the way to go, just go directly. Maybe, I don't know, maybe by observing that, one can, if one has very good concentration, one might be able to, when sleeping, one might be able to observe and recognize the signs at the time of sleep. I think in general that might be possible, but certainly on the path of completion, you're able to do that. My understanding is that on the path of generation, just by visualizing that, it's not sufficient to allow you to recognize that. You won't have the concentration of mind to be able to recognize that. May be wrong. That's my understanding. But you can still simulate that in the generation stage. Imagine the stages. Like, in fact, that's one of the ways that one imagines going to sleep. Imagine the dissolution of the elements and then remaining in the clear light. What one is doing then is one, again, simulates that clear light and tries to remain in that as the winds actually are absorbing, and to leave some kind of similitude of that through the clear light of the sleep. So in terms of the clear light of death, in terms of observing these at the time of death, I'm not sure. I think it's, again, similar, that you can't really recognize them and utilize them in totality until you've practiced and had some experience in this lifetime. But perhaps at the time of death, because the winds are being absorbed by the force of karma, not through the force of your meditation, if you've familiarized in this lifetime with the generation stage and these evolutions, you might be able to recognize them, some of them, at the time of death. You wouldn't be able to bring because you'd actually, say, if you hadn't actually achieved the isolation of mind and so forth before, you wouldn't have any kind of bringing of emptiness to that point, but you could have something similar. You could produce some kind of auspiciousness to be able to do that in the future. So that's a question you can ask your other lamas, whether on the basis of just practicing the generation stage this lifetime, whether you'd be able to recognize the appearances at the time of death. Again, it may be in some of the texts, I don't recall. Okay? Mr. Pat.
Mr. Crash.
Venerable, what about in the case of a very sudden death? Heart attack,
Like a
car crash.
yeah, okay.
I'm gonna say it.
Something that would happen to him.
A car crash with
Well,
K.
let me tell you, you have a lot more time in those situations than you think. Time slows down.
So what about those?
So, I mean, if you had a mass fire, how much of this could you really? Well, I guess it would depend on your practice and how much you practice. I guess that's what some spiritualities and cultures talk about, preparing for a good death, so to speak.
Well, yeah, we talk about preparing for good death. Our culture also. So I think in a very quick, what's the word you used? Sudden death. Even a practitioner who's had meditated during this lifetime, the visions are going to come very, very quickly. Unless they're prepared, they might not even recognize them, even if they'd already achieved the path of completion. Now you can, through practicing things this lifetime, bringing, not yet qualified to practice the stage of completion, but simulating that, maybe practicing Tumo or other things, you might be able to have some experience of entry of the winds into the central channel, but it's not fully qualified path of preparation. You're not even on the path of accumulation yet. So it's not actual completion stage, but you might think it's completion stage because you might have some appearance of these. So it might be that, like Pabonka Rinpoche said, that to practice these things, even though they're not in the correct order, to leave some imprint of them is very beneficial, because then when everything does come together later, you'll be able to progress very quickly through them. I think for us in this lifetime, to try to practice the generation stage is very important, to leave imprints to be able to practice the completion stage either this lifetime or future lifetimes. And especially at the time of death, because if we haven't finished the generation stage, if we don't yet have spontaneous bodhicitta, we don't yet have divine pride and pure view and so forth, pure vision, to especially practice the methods of bodhicitta this lifetime, so that one can die in that virtuous state of mind, making a very firm determination in future lifetimes to work for the benefit of sentient beings, contemplating again and again the shortcomings of attachment and the ordinary pursuits that we engage in, pursuits of happiness and wealth and relationships and so forth, meditating on the shortcomings of those, even though we're still entangled with them. Because if we're still entangled with these things, obviously any kind of thing we think we're practicing, the completion stage or generation stage, is just kind of like little kids playing doctor, right? I mean, the achievement of enlightenment is something said to be so sublime, so difficult, to think that while we're still caught up in all sorts of mundane concerns, that we could achieve enlightenment with still not giving up those minds, still not developing renunciation, not developing bodhicitta, and not realizing emptiness. It would make kind of a mockery of the achievement of enlightenment. That you could do it while not doing any of these things, that you could achieve enlightenment by some simple path. So I think for us, important thing is, while we're meditating on these, use it as a remembrance of the inevitability of death, and that these stages will definitely come, to try to motivate us to create the causes to practice the generation stage and the completion stage. To really practice the generation stage, you want to have the right conditions, quiet and continuity, again and again, practicing without break, to develop single-pointed concentration using yourself and the mandala, the deities of the mandala, perhaps a body mandala, as your objects of samadhi, of single-pointed concentration, and to unify within that a recognition, an understanding of emptiness, all motivated out of bodhicitta, compassion for sentient beings. And this kind of practice, accumulating merit, practicing the succession yoga, practicing the generation stage, it's said that you can accumulate so much merit that can act then as a basis for the generation of bodhicitta, as you actually meditate on bodhicitta. So you have to meditate on the causes of bodhicitta, equalizing and exchanging oneself with others, or also together, the 7 meditations of cause and effect. If you don't meditate on these things, you're not going to generate bodhicitta. I remember Geshe Darge used to say, and Nawan Darge used to say, quoting his teacher and our teacher, Kebje Trijang Rinpoche, who is the junior tutor of the Dalai Lama, who was my first abbot. Rinpoche used to say that the action, the real bodhisattva activities, you look at all of these different kinds of activities that you might think you should be doing as a proto-bodhisattva. He said the real bodhisattva activity is meditating on these causes of bodhicitta. This is what a real proto-bodhisattva would do. Someone who's not yet, in the sense that a real bodhisattva is someone who's developed spontaneous bodhicitta. In order to do that, you need to meditate on the causes of bodhicitta. It's not enough just to do, the quick meditation on the four immeasurables or something like that. You need to go back over the teachings that you've received, how to develop bodhicitta. And then you see that much of that depends on having renunciation, a sense of renunciation. You can't, how can you feel compassion for sentient beings who have lots of money or wealth or seem to be doing well now unless you have a real sense of renunciation and recognize all these samsaric marvels are of the nature of suffering. So all of the path acts, this is what we should be meditating on now. Lama Zopa Rinpoche mentioned once he went to Kapsri Trijang Rinpoche, who was his root guru. He mentions as his root guru. And did anyone here meet Kapsri Trijang Rinpoche? I don't think anyone was old enough. Kapsri Trijang Rinpoche, very, very kind and wise being, one of the tutors of the Dalai Lama, the two tutors. So Lama Zopa Rinpoche came to him, he said to us when he, younger days, and said, "Oh, Rinpoche, protect me from the lower realms. Please protect me from, being reborn in the lower realms." And he said, Rinpoche just very casually said, "Oh, the method for that is the Lan Rim." So once we've already taken refuge on the basis of a person of beginning scope, and we've tried to practice on that level to not be born on the lower realms by observing our behavior, restraining from the 10 non-virtuous actions, creating virtuous karma, and so forth, then taking refuge on the level of the person of intermediate scope and seeking the methods of liberation, especially 3 higher trainings and meditation on selflessness, emptiness. Then on the level of the person of higher scope, taking refuge to achieve enlightenment for the welfare of sentient beings, it's then, if you graft to that tantra, that you're taking tantric refuge, this is the refuge that you would, this is the method, the dharma of highest yoga tantra that you would actualize these generation stage and completion stage in order to purify impure death, bardo, and rebirth and achieve the enlightened state. So although we can simulate this now, probably it's better to put more time, not just to do that simulation, unless you have already actualized the earlier stages, so that you can be assured that at the time of death you have some refuge. Otherwise, the only refuge you're going to have is this simulation of, imagining the various dissolutions, but you won't have renunciation or bodhicitta or wisdom of emptiness. So what we